Well, good morning, Dad. How are you?
I'm anxious.
So what's going on here today?
Oh, this is the first day at Superior Health Solutions and meet the doctor and the staff and get started on the program.
What is this program? What are your expectations?
Well, I like the idea of getting rid of the pain. I like to be standing up a little straighter. I'd like to halt this disease at the stage at the place it is, and hopefully even turn it back some. Got all kinds of hopes.
How long is this process supposed to take?
Well, we're talking about 4 days a week for 2 months, and then evaluate after that.
And what is your process going to be like? Because where have you come from and where are you now? Literally, physically.
You mean travel? Well, I flew down from Oakland this morning, and I go back on Thursday, and I repeat again for the next 2 months.
So your plan is to... So we were saying you're gonna keep flying back and forth, you think?
Well, at least initially. It kind of depends on how Mom's doing and how things are going down here. I hope play by ear.
How was Mom this morning?
She was pretty groggy and had that headache. Not feeling well. It's the way she's been feeling for the last month or two.
So is she admitting she's depressed at this point?
Oh yeah. Well, she's admitting she had a migraine headache and nausea. And anxiety, real bad anxiety. I don't know if that automatically says I'm depressed or not, but it says everything but says it.
You know, we're just edging at when this. It's interesting. The beginning of the process down in Phoenix. We were saying about how the last morning in Phoenix, how Mom was so ready to fight and kind of stand in front of the video camera and say, "I didn't like how I was portrayed in the original Boys of Summer, and I want to talk about it." And at that very time, she went down for this latest bout of depression, and now, what about almost 2 months later, here she is still down.
Yeah, well, she says she wants to fight, and I'm sure she means it, but it doesn't seem to come through. Or maybe she's fighting and not getting the results she wants. I don't know, but if she's fighting it, it's not apparent to me.
How do you feel about seeing her go through it?
I feel very helpless. There's nothing I can do. Well, I feed her and keep her company, but there's not much else I can do. They wouldn't do anything more for her in the hospital. All they do is make sure you're taking your meds and you're getting your nutrition. Other than that, there's really not much they do for you.
So was there any debate about for you internally coming down here versus being up there?
No, not really. I said I'm going to do it. I was pretty firm on that. And I think she wanted me to do it, although she would like to have me home too. Richard and Anita are going to be checking in on her.
Why do you think you need to do this right now?
Well, it's really other than the steady increase of medication, it doesn't seem to help. I've been going downhill the last 2-3 months that I've noticed really dramatically in my stamina, my strength, and my ability to operate with pain. And this is the first program that seems to promise something better. So I'm very hopeful.
Let's go get him. Go ahead and press the button there, Dan. And go right up to level 2. I'll meet you up top. I'll meet you up there.
Okay.
Right, those are two pretty decent things. So I just wanted to get it, from you. We've talked. I've done a lot of the talking. But I wanted to get kind of an idea. What are the things that you're dealing with? I know Parkinson's has so many different things that go along with it. And Robert's going to fill me in. What are some of the things that you're dealing with here, for the most part?
Well, mine, I don't have any shakiness.
Okay, good.
The palsy or whatever you call it. It's more of a deep, dull pain in my back.
Okay.
It's really, it's not. I've had bad backs before,
Okay.
and they're a sharp pain.
Okay.
But this is a deep, all everywhere type of pain that bends you over,
Okay.
and then that affects the way I walk.
Okay. Is it worse if you do certain things, like more activity makes it worse? Laying
Yeah.
down makes it worse. Does laying down make it better?
Laying down feels better.
Feels better. Okay.
Sitting feels better.
Sitting feels better, but
Standing is terrible.
okay.
Walking is bad.
Okay. It's what will usually happen with this. Part of the neurology of Parkinson's, and to make a fairly complicated neurological condition fairly simple, to oversimplify, you have basically two ways that your brain sends signals. Okay, one speeds things up, and one slows things down. Okay, in Parkinson's, we end up stuck in that sped up response. Part of that neurologically, so the way that the brain signals, the signals keep coming out as if they're this overreaction. Part of that causes you to flex, and it's that hunching, where you feel like you want to bend forward, where you feel like your muscles want to bend up. That's what we talked about. We talked about putting, a stroke patient who bubbles up. So we need, and then that will create a lot of pain.
I feel like I'm always out of balance.
Right, and yeah, your balance sensors will certainly go off. That'll create a lot of discomfort. Usually, obviously, as we work to get everything right chemistry-wise here, that's one thing. But usually, one of the easier things to do is handle the pain and discomfort that goes along with this. That's actually the easiest part. Getting the rest of it to kind of play together is the trick. But we'll definitely work with that today and see if we can get the nice part about it is for most people, 50%, 60% of the time, they can start seeing their pain levels come down in that moment while we do it. Now the big question always is how long does it stay that way?
Sure.
And that's what I have to figure out with you. Most people will get about 8 hours. I've had people go days. I've had people go 20 minutes. It just depends on how your body reacts, which is again, we'll see how you react. You're the X factor in all of this. But the one thing I want to do with you real kind of quickly is just go over your labs and quick over this too, from an idea of dopamine production. How this actually occurs. Now again, because with Parkinson's, it's all about, we have this in effect of the chemical dopamine in your brain. Okay? And dopamine does lots of different things in our body. It makes us feel reward, but it controls all the motor centers, it controls the ability to movement, all of those things. So when we look at dopamine production, I don't know what's the easiest thing if you're fine. Okay, so if you could just, so we bring this is a type of amino acid called phenylalanine. Okay, this shows up in the body, and at the state of the liver, it gets converted into tyrosine, okay, which is another acid. Then tyrosine will get transported from your body, from your liver, up past the barrier that protects your brain from the blood. It's like a strainer, okay, to here. Now, in order for it to do that, we need our insulin levels and our leptin levels, which are two different hormones, to be in normal ranges. And one of the things that we're seeing here is you're starting to develop way too much insulin. So to go from here to here is going to be one thing, because now also our liver's not functioning well, because we see that with the excess amount of cholesterol that's building up. So we're getting bad cholesterol building up. So now, from an entire standpoint of production of dopamine, the first part is we're going to have trouble making this stuff in the liver to get from here to here. Then the insulin is too high, so we're going to have trouble then transporting it up that way. When we get up here, we need oxygen, iron, and B9 to make tyrosine into dopa, L-dopa. Iron's an issue because we're coming up as anemic. You're coming up as having anemia issues. Then from DOPA to dopamine, you need B6. B9 and B6, we tested you for a genetic marker, and you have the genetic that we see in most Parkinson's patients, which will say that you will be about 30 to 60% less capable of absorbing those two B vitamins. So you can see when we talk about dopamine as a production, that we use this overly simplified view, just saying, well, you don't have enough. But if you really roll up the sleeves and figure out why your body is not going to be able to create it, and we can work at each level, cleaning up the liver, making sure you get enough of this amino acid, making sure it can convert it to this, making sure that our insulin levels are normal so that it can transport it up here, making sure that we handle the anemia, making sure that we give you enough of the B vitamins so your body can take it from point A all the way to point Z and make that neurotransmitter and get it to your brain and then get it converted over to where it'll work.
Is insulin basically a dietary?
It is. It certainly is, because we'll see people will have spikes depending upon what they eat with food-wise. But there's other reasons too. It's a very inflammatory type thing. Once somebody's system starts to inflame, it can get involved and start to have problems with it, just like any other hormone will. Because your blood sugar is very well controlled, which is probably part of the reason that they never notice this for you. Usually insulin gets related to your blood sugar from like a diabetic conversation. And that is very true. But in this case, your blood sugar is so well maintained that they were probably never testing what your actual insulin levels are. The problem that we're having here is your pancreas is kicking out twice as much insulin. It's working twice as hard to keep your sugar levels normal. And when you have that, now when you just look at your sugar levels in this kind of high, this tunnel, they look fine. But your body's working incredibly hard in order to keep that fine, and it shouldn't be doing that. Plus, that creates us a secondary problem elsewhere. You're not a diabetic, which is great, but the problem is now is we're going to have trouble transporting this tyrosine up to the brain in order to start making dopamine because your insulin levels are out of control too high. So it's definitely one of the things that we need to focus on all of these steps. I print this because it creates a very logical standpoint of how this actually is created and where we're getting stuck. In your case, you're getting stuck in quite a few places, but I got to tell you that's pretty common in the world of Parkinson's. The body is so good at what it does, if you're stuck in one or two places, it will usually get around that. Yeah. It can make other pathways to make it work. In this case scenario, we're stuck in a couple of places.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, good. And actually,
we want to take this out right now.
What's that? Yeah. Trust me, I don't think a lot of people would when we go over this stuff. So we can go more into depth on the labs and things like that. But that was the major thing that I kind of wanted to get across. We have inflammatory markers. We have cholesterol markers, which would be for the liver. The one enzyme marker, did show up a little bit higher than we want it to be. Because again, your B12, which is going to be a big hormone for us here, is just a smidge above what they would consider normal, but it's not even optimal ranges. We're going to really gun for ranges that are considered optimal, versus anything else. The one's probably saving grace for you through all of this is your HbA1c level, which is another marker that they look at a lot with diabetics. Basically, it looks at a 90-day average of how well your body uptakes sugar. So, when you take your sugar levels, your fasting glucose levels, that's a snapshot for where we are in that second, in that moment in time. This one's a long-term marker. It looks at a 90-day average. And every bit of research, again, it plays for diabetics, but every other bit of research says when that number goes over a certain level, they'll actually start to see shrinkage of the brain. And when it's under a certain level, you'll actually get a brain that will grow and create new neurons and things like that. It's looked at a lot of the times, again, in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things like that, disease process like that. But usually that magic number is 5.7, less than 5.7 to even 5.4, better than that, your brain will be growing. If it's above 6, your brain will be shrinking, and you're at 5.4, which is probably one of the reasons you haven't expressed all of the tremors and things like that. Your brain is still getting a lot of the nutrients that it needs. Again, it's able to overcome, which is good. And we obviously want to make sure that stays that way as well, too, because at the worst case scenario is if this has no progression over the course, and we can set it up where we look at it and say, you will not progress, and that's a huge win. Most of the time, that is not where we get stuck. Usually we see, better changes than that, but I mean, even at the end of the day, if this says, well, you'll keep your quality of life at a pretty high level, you won't get those types of things, that's a winning conversation.
Sure.
Versus trying to patch you up on the way down, which is where we used to go with patients, and it's a difficult conversation to have.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll get you started on some of the things. We use a few different modalities in order to do this. We'll do some things that will help facilitate some of the detox from your liver. We'll do some things to help facilitate getting the insulin levels normalized and balanced out. Again, all of this stuff doesn't heal you. It's designed to speed up the healing process. Okay, it takes the pressure off of your body. We don't heal anything. We just get all of that stuff out of the way so that your body can move forward. Your body knows how to do this. It knows how to do this better than we have. You're just stuck. So we're just going to act as kind of an intermediary to get you unstuck and let your body start healing and rebuilding. Okay.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, and it's a fun ride for sure. But we had one Parkinson's patient. Sometimes it's little things. And his doctor had recommended to him that he eat eggs, brain food. And it's not a bad recommendation. This gentleman specifically, so he was eating about 8-9 eggs a day. He was allergic to eggs. Now, unbeknownst to him, unbeknownst to his doctor, when we lab tested it, I was like, wow, it was a bad allergy. You need to come off of these. So, he was like, what am I gonna do with all these eggs? He said, well, if it was Halloween time, you could have some fun eggs in houses, but right now he's gonna have his own farmer's market. But the reality of it is once he came off, within a week's worth of time, we saw noticeable changes just within his tremoring, just from that, because he's not inflaming. So, lots of this stuff does come down to what we can do and just putting your body in a position where it can succeed. In that case, sometimes it's an innocent thing that we're thinking we're doing right. He was like, I'm eating healthy. And he was, except not for his body. Yeah. And again, that's where when you get into a cookie cutter approach with everybody's the same, Parkinson's has a lot of overlap. This is how dopamine creates in everybody's system. But not everybody has the same problems.
Right.
Everybody's body is a little bit different. So there is no cookie cutter approach with this. We have to kind of roll up the sleeves and get into each individual person and their levels and treat them differently. Again, you'll have overlap usually, but it's got to be an individualized portion. Okay. The nice part about all of this is really pretty easy on you. They're not going to make you exercise. You're not going to have to run. You're not going to have to do anything crazy between your ear. You just have to be the modalities. We'll run. And then we'll get you set up piece at a time, and we'll put a thing in piece at a time here so we don't overwhelm.
I like that exercise room, by the way.
We'll get you there. We'll get you there. That's the goal. We're going to get you up and moving. But, and at this point, we got to get your system built up. We got to buy you a little leeway.
Yeah.
Okay? Great questions for me. Questions for me? Okay.
I think so.
Okay. So we'll get the girls in here. We'll get you set up on modalities. They'll walk you through. Again, you don't feel anything. And then we'll start the process, and then I'll meet up with you afterwards again. And then we'll start the actual neurological treatment to try to get your pain levels down.
Yeah, good.
Okay, perfect.
I do have one question, Doc, actually, and you could address this to my dad.
Sure.
Nutrition-wise, when will that component come into play, and what might that look like, or do we have to do more tests for it?
No, right coming up, we're going to start putting nutrition stuff into place. Within the next couple of visits or so, we'll sit down and have a good long conversation about what we want you to be eating, the style that we want to be eating. And specifically for you, the other part of it that does come out and play out pretty good is to do food allergy testing. Just because, like I was stating with that one gentleman, healthy foods cannot vibe with your system. And I'll give you a great example. I'm massively allergic to carrots. Who would think that something as healthy as a carrot, but my body deems them very unhealthy for me. So same thing, one of my staff members is massively allergic to cucumbers. So sometimes, when in the best of our intentions, we're eating healthy. Obviously we want to remove the bad foods, the bad fats, the sugars, all that kind of stuff. But, sometimes it can actually be a healthy food that's still tripping us up. And we just want to stack the deck as much on our side as moving forward as we can be. But the general baselines and guidelines of the diet that we'll put into place will be there. That just helps us to kind of fine-tune it again specifically for you and based off of your blood work as well. But yeah, that kicks in right away. we let you kind of wade into some of the treatments and things like that, start feeling better first. Because that, truth be told, it's easy to come here and sit and just go through the treatments. The toughest thing is to start changing up the diet, maybe changing ways you're eating or taking foods out or things of that nature. That's the part of this that's the hardest.
Sure.
But it's a very doable diet. It's not something where you're starving by any stretch of the imagination. We're not calorie cutting or anything majorly here. It's not heavily restricted. It's just trying to eat clean, healthy foods. But
Good.
lots of different things that taste good. This is not the bland, gross, disgusting diet that you have to deal with. Okay, good. Those.
Right,
Any other
thank you.
questions? Yeah, no worries. All right, so I'll step out. The girls will come on in. I'll give you your labs here, and you can even take a.
Hello. How are you? Dan Robert, this is Chelsea. She's the MA. So she'll be doing a lot of the moving to modalities and everything, okay?
Great, thank you.
John, I'll let him know you're ready, okay?
Okay.
What's your name?
Chelsea. Okay, so this is going to go on the lower back. A little cold. This is going to go on your lower tummy. Tuck right in. Good morning, ma'am. Hi. Nice to meet you. I know. It's never fun. I'm so sorry. This is just going to sit right here. It's just salt. Follow me right this way. Chelsea, I'm heading back to the upper. The salt's just equalizing the water. I know.
How's this feel compared to Dr. Fang?
Current's a little high.
Can I get you any water?
Yeah.
Want some water?
Sure.
Yes, please.
I'm mouthing off. Then we started letting.
All right, Doc, what do we got here?
Start talking about Yankees. Okay, so basically what this is an ionic detox unit. Okay, so we use the feet typically because the feet have the largest pores. So what the machine does is the array breaks up the water atoms. Okay, so H2O, it's going to split it into hydrogens and oxygens. And what it does is it creates a charge in the water, either a negative charge or a positive charge. And basically all we're doing is playing off the ideas of magnetism here. In your body, inflammation has a very negative charge. Toxins, chemicals, heavy metals, biotoxins, bacteria has a very positive charge to it. So, and your body is neutral. So by charging the water very negative, it's going to attract the positive things like heavy metals and biotoxins to come out, because opposites will attract, just like a magnet, opposite poles, and it pulls it out of the system. Again, we start and we do this a lot for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to lessen the toll that's already on your liver, because with this, unfortunately with dopamine production, it starts and stops the conversation in the liver. Secondarily, doing this allows us to move faster. Because if we just have to wait for your liver to be able to handle all of this push that we're going to put on it, we would have to wait significantly longer periods of time. This allows us to speed up that process so quickly. And that's all that we're just trying to accomplish here. So you'll see a lot of stuff about these things on the internet, that they're bogus and things of that nature. And I can tell you for sure that I've looked at the units that they've done those testings on. They're very cheap units. These are professional grade units. It's like anything else. You can get a unit from $50 to $3,600. Again, we give you the guidelines of what it'll be. They've third-party tested this. I personally tested it to make sure it works. I've tested the water before and after. I've had independent labs test the water before and after to know that it does what it says it does. They're really helpful adjuncts. So again, I know they get a lot of negative pub on the internet, but just like anything else, it would be like going on and saying all meat's bad, but then you're comparing like a 5-star filet mignon restaurant type of steak with a McDonald's hamburger, which is virtually inedible. So. Same kind of thing that we're looking at. So you won't feel anything. The water will consistently change color, depending. We have you on a combo frequency now to get inflammation and toxins out at the same time, through the same course, and we'll change that up as we go. This has about 5 different settings, but the water levels will change, and then you'll be able to see a difference. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up on what that's doing. The microcurrent unit that we have on that's running at this point as well too is a really interesting piece of technology, because what it does, very simply, is it'll lower your inflammation levels and it'll boost your cellular repair. It boosts up the abilities of the cells to make energy, and that causes repair of tissue very, very quickly. Again, we're pulling bad stuff out. We're boosting the body's ability to heal. That's a good, healthy combination. Okay? Good? All right, I just wanted to give you a little bit of heads up on what you doing.
Dr. Fang, eat your heart out.
What's that?
Dr. Fang, eat your heart out.
For Dr. Fang?
Dr. Fang, eat your heart out.
You just heard it up. Quick pan and tilt here.
It looks like I wanted to shit for about 2 days. Oops.
They're totally different.
So what's going on?
This one's about different.
Oh, I see.
See the difference?
Okay.
I mean, that's a pretty good amount of place. And you can see it's coming from here.
Staying up in the hips.
Yeah, so it's pretty significant on even as someone coming to the crest. I'm right on the top of those hips, right?
Yes.
See the difference?
Wow.
Where we are. Yeah, so that's going to project a lot of leg differences here. So every time he walks, he's going to keep throwing himself off. Let's see if we can lighten those up a little bit. So this is where the advent of things like light therapy. So just close your eyes for me for a sec. I just don't want to get this light in your eyes. Then let me touch on the forehead here. I'm just going to light you. What light therapy basically does is the photon that goes into the body donates an electron, and any kind of electron donor then will go to the mitochondria of the cells, and again starts creating more cellular energy. Doing this over certain points will line up, start to line up some functions. So we took about half of it out just with that. These hips actually are pretty close to even now, which is good. And we took about half of the distance here. You see the difference? So it's now about there to there. So that's about a half an inch now. Good. But then it comes from the neck. Okay. So you can feel we put just a little bit of pressure on your neck. A couple different spots here. Sometimes when we do this, sometimes people will get a sensation of warmth. Sometimes they'll get a sensation of tingling, and it could be anywhere. It could be in your face, it could be in your arms, your legs, your hands, your feet. Some people get a sensation of relaxation. They feel light, like they're floaty, or heavy, like they're sinking. Sometimes they'll get pressure in the ears. The big thing is, does it bring your pain levels down? And I know your pain is pretty much down to the zero now when we're starting here, but when we get up and move around, I want to see if it takes more time for that pain level to start coming up. stuff, just let me know where you feel it. It takes a minute or two before you start doing anything, usually. Is it okay? Is it too much pressure? Are you okay? Okay. Okay, if it's too much, you just let me know. It's nice and relaxing, isn't it?
It is. My lower back seems to be pretty relaxed.
Okay, good. And that's what we want. Even if there's no pain, you'll still feel that sense of relaxation, which is exactly what we're looking for here. And we're going to check and see if we leveled out those legs. You always describe it, it feels like that arch in your low back flattens out, that the muscles aren't quite holding that arch quite so rigidly, and then we'll see that in the representation of how your pelvis lays here. And one way that we can start to see that we know that we're getting into that kind of deep, rhythmic, slowed down pace. As you can see, it goes into diaphragmatic breathing of the belly. The belly starts expanding, the breath starts to get really slow but really deep, and the belly expands. It's a really easy eye test to see, to know that we're getting into that deep, basic relaxed state. Okay, good there. So I'm going to come around. Let's see how we did on those. Am I right on your hips there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So see now, we're pretty much close to straight across even there. So when we come down to the legs, push them together here, and we're real darn close to being almost straight up and down even. So that's going to take a lot of pressure off when you're just walking. It's going to right you. Now again, this won't stay, but it's the repetition of this. It's like anything else. We have to build up some muscle memory, and in this case, nerve muscle memory, in order to get it to stay that way. But that's where the repetition of this comes. One day I can figure out how to do this in one shot. Well, I'll be very, very happy. All right, my friend, let's set you up here. Grab onto me and give a tug as you go. You
forward on me when you're ready. Throw your legs up. Okay, give yourself a second. Sometimes people get a little bit of a head rush when they get up right from there. You're stimulating a lot of things. So basically what that comes down to is, it's almost, think of it like a neurological reset. It's just like restarting a computer. You're stuck in that sped up system. That treatment there allows the system to rebalance itself out. So that way, now you're gonna be more in that slowed down, healing, calm down mode, which is where we want you to be. Now again, both of them are normal. You're gonna go back and forth between both systems, but this is really where we wanna keep you at this point. So what I want you to do for me is, as you move about, see if your pain's the same. Is it up? Is it down? Does it come back up quite as quickly?
What do you think about him exercising, because it is a regular part of his day?
Yeah, if it's normal routine, go for it.
Okay, cool.
You know, but again, you may see that there's not as, you can't do as much, or you may be able to do a little bit more. Don't push too much more, take it slow, because, you know, we just try to limit the 1 step forward, 2 steps back, you know, 1 step back routine, 2 steps back routine. But if it's a normal part, do your thing, you know, walking, any of that stuff is gonna, you know, make this better.
Half marathon a day, Dad.
Yeah, just half. Tell you what, we get to a full one, I'll do it with you. I'm not a runner. Yeah, we're all set. So when you get up and move around, just see how you feel. Okay.
I don't think quite as bent over.
How do you feel?
Not as bent over.
A little bit of pain relief?
Yeah.
So you feel some difference in your...
Definitely straighter. Your hips are even. So, in like anything, anytime we talk about scoliosis, the old ways of thinking was always be that, oh, that the hips would go off and then that would create just like a house, you know, your foundation is on level and then everything would lean. Now we find out more than anything else is that it's a combination of nutritional imbalances. The hips have to be level, but you could see, I didn't even work on his hips. We worked mostly on his neck, the balancing of those brain activity waves, and you know, using light to basically neutralize any kind of bad stuff going on the inside and just give some cellular repair. When the first bone in the neck shifts out of place, that causes the hips to uneven. But I've seen people with perfectly straight low backs with uneven hips, and it comes off of the neck.
You know, we think of foundation being feet because it's what connects us with the ground, but it almost sounds like you're talking about the neck being the foundation.
In a lot of the sense it is, because the neck is the foundation for the brain. And ultimately the brain is the foundation for the whole body. You know, we get so caught up into the structural integrity of this all that we forget the fact, and even a term like muscle memory. You know, once you ride a bike, you never forget. It's kind of a misnomer because muscles don't remember anything. Because if you cut the nerve to your bicep doesn't move. There's no memory. The muscle is just a worker. The nerve remembers. The nerve calibrates length. The nerve calibrates strength. And if it feels it needs to protect itself, it will shorten the length of that muscle as a protective mechanism. So really it ultimately comes down to nerve functions. And the strongest area we have of that is literally what the brain is telling through those nerves. You know, that's where the biggest area of neurology comes from. So that's where the focus goes. And it's allowed us to make, you know, these huge leaps and jump changes where you can see, you know, such a huge discrepancy bottoms out pretty quickly.
We're trying to get his body to stop fighting itself in some ways.
Yeah, you want to play together. Communication, right? We talked about. Everybody's got to play together. All right, good. So just keep tabs for me about, like, again, how much the pain relief is and if you feel straighter and stuff like that. I don't expect you to stay, but, you know, if we get 6 to 8 hours out of that, we consider that a pretty good win.
We'll document everything,
Cool.
and we'll
Yeah.
keep you. You know,
How did I know you